Welcome into another episode of Five Rounds here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Been waiting for this episode for a long time, guys. We get to talk about the grudge match. We started talking about this fight as soon as it was announced a couple of months ago. Time has crept by very slowly, but this Saturday night, we finally get it. Colby Covington against his former best friend / roommate / training partner. These guys couldn't possibly hate each other more than they do right now. Jorge Masvidal. They are going to do the damn thing this Saturday live on pay-per-view. And guys, if you're looking for a spot to watch it, I cannot recommend anywhere as good or better, especially not better, than the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. They've got it for no cover charge. My friends, find the nearest Quarterdeck location, and you will pay nothing at the door to watch UFC 272, watch the grudge match while you're enjoying 2-for-1 happy hour, which never ends. That's all day, every day. Sipping those 2-for-1 margaritas, drinking some of that ice-cold beer, eating the delicious seafood. Oh, man, I love the sushi. I love to build my own poke bowl. The buffalo shrimp, best appetizer on the planet. The chicken wings are also awesome. The burgers and sandwiches are great. Guys, whether you're watching a big game or a big fight for zero cover charge, you need to make your home away from home the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. Why would you pay $75 to order it at home? You can go to the Quarterdeck, enjoy the delicious food, and pay zero cover charge. So if you want to find the location nearest to you or peep that menu before you go, check them out online at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. As I introduce my co-hosts, I want to read this incredible quote from Colby Covington. I was watching some of the press material from this week. Colby Covington, he was asked about, bringing in any emotions into this fight, right? Because it's very personal between these two guys. This is not business. This is personal between these two. So Colby was asked about emotions. He said, I put the emotions aside. I'm not the ultimate feelings champion. I'm an ultimate fighting champion. There will be no feelings involved and no mercy on Jorge Masvidal on Saturday night. And and I know that this hits close to home with Masvidal, and I know Colby knows that. He referred to Masvidal as Fidel Castro Jr. He called him the definition of communism because, in Colby's words, back when Jorge, wasn't making UFC money, big time UFC money, he was, he had like the Obama card, like whatever the debit card or the Obama phone is what he said. He had the Obama phone and he was like taking food stamps. So there's no love lost between these two. Frank Zaffere. Frank, let me bring you in first on this one. We've been waiting a long time for this. What have you made? Because also I gave you some quotes from Colby. Masvidal, he has had some savage quotes in the buildup. What have you made of the war of words between these guys this week?
Well, it's been predictable. I mean, look, this is what Colby does well. He gets under your skin. As Kamaru Usman did a really good breakdown of this fight for ESPN. I don't know if you guys caught it. But one of the things he talked about was Colby doesn't just cross the line. He steps on the line. He jumps all over the line. He desecrates the line. That's his game, to make you emotional about the fight. And then Masvidal's whole shtick has just been to prove that Colby isn't who he pretends to be. But I'm not sure how effective that is. Like that, it's almost like saying, you're not really mean, you're a nice guy. Okay, and showing contradictory images, of him being nice, but then him saying rude things, etc. So I don't know. I think in this war of words, Colby, it's yet to be seen, but I suspect Colby will be the winner. I think that Colby will come in, because I use past fights as an example. Tyron Woodley couldn't have been nastier, and Colby came in very clinical with absolutely no emotion.
Yep.
I think Jorge, I like to call him George, but anyway,
I think goes by either.
Yeah, I think George is an emotional guy by his very nature. That's not an insult; it's just who he is. And I think he's upset. I think he wants to teach him a lesson, even more than he wants to win. And I think that's exactly what Colby wants.
Yeah, and there's a reason why Colby's a 3-1 favorite in this. I don't know if the odds went down, but however, I don't know, man. Like, I think he's making Masvidal a little more dangerous, by having him being, upset and motivated. You saw, what happened to Ben Askren, and that was trash talking about Ben Askren. Masvidal was very motivated for that fight and knocked him out in I don't know, what was it, 5 seconds, something like that.
Yeah,
it was the quickest knockout in UFC history. Yeah, I know, right? So I don't know if you want to make Masvidal any more dangerous than he already is, but there were two fights I was most looking forward to in Q1 with the UFC, and my first fight was taken away with Beneil Dariush and Islam Makhachev. That one was taken away, but I'm glad that this one is going to go through. Could be fight of the year candidate. I could see this going 5 rounds. It could be one-sided depending on which way, but I think this is going to be a war. I think both guys are going to give it their all, which is I think is part of the intrigue, and you can't write a better story with it. I just wish Colby didn't cross the line as much. I think you can do a ton of trash talking against the opponent and just leave it at that. Leave the kids out, leave the family out, leave the wives out, ex-wives, what have you. Leave all that stuff out and just trash talk Masvidal, and everything would have been fine. Masvidal would have trash talked back, and they could settle in the cage. But but Colby likes crossing over the line, so we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, and Colby always, and I'm still kind of confused as to what the real relationship is. So apparently Masvidal has like his legal wife he's been estranged from for quite some time.
Alex, you there?
And I guess. Hello.
Yep.
Hello. Am I here? Okay.
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah, so Masvidal has a wife that he's apparently estranged from, and Colby seems to have either befriended her or he just uses her as kind of a means to trash talk. So he keeps bringing up how he's cheating on his real wife, who he's legally married to, with some other woman, and then he brings the kids into it. So definitely lines being crossed. Like James is 1,000% right when he talks about lines being crossed. And honestly, obviously, I respect Colby Covington's creativity, and like I look at a lot of his trash talk. I look at it as performance art, and you can tell he does a lot of his trash talk with kind of a smirk, Frank. Whereas I've been watching both guys in the build-up to this one. Jorge Masvidal, his trash talk is 100% sincere. Like he doesn't do his with a smirk the way that Colby Covington does. Like when Masvidal tells the story about Colby allegedly stiffing their coach, which is what originally drove a wedge in their friendship, and when Jorge talks about, how fake Colby is, and he talks about him having no heart and how he used to break him in the gym with his strikes and how he wants to put him in the ER, there's something savage about the way Masvidal delivers that trash talk. Like he is completely 100% enraged and sincere. Versus Colby, who it's like Andy Kaufman. Like it's like you're watching performance art the way that this guy trash talks. So there's a little bit of a difference in there, but that kind of picks up on your original point, Frank, that if anyone is going to go in there with a little bit more emotion and maybe throw more reckless abandon out there and abandon the game plan, it's more likely to be Masvidal, because I think he's going to take this a little bit more emotionally than Colby. Is that how you expect the fight to play out? Do you think that it may be kind of a measured approach between the two fighters, or do you think Masvidal is going to come out and start swinging for the fences immediately?
Well, that's what Masvidal always does. George has a exceptional takedown defense. He can stand straight up, stay in a very advantageous boxing position, which obviously is his strength. So I think he'll come out and he's fast, and I think he'll be swinging hard, and I think he'll be looking to hurt Colby right away. And I think he'll be emotional about it. And I think Colby will be very clinical. I think he'll be using that jab a la Robbie Lawler. And I think he'll be looking to, I actually, as good a wrestler as Colby is, I agree with Kamaru Usman. I don't think he'll be able to nail the takedowns as easily as some people might suggest, because, George is really good at defending them. Yeah. But I think he will be able to use his exceptional cardio to press him up against the cage, make him fight the takedown, grind on him. If he does get him down, George will get back up, but then down again or up against the cage again, and then break for a little exchange, and then rinse and repeat. And so to James's point, I think the likelihood of this going the distance is very strong.
Yeah, and James, we were just talking about how you expect this fight to play out. I think to pick up on what Frank was saying, yeah, Colby is a wrestler by trade, and he has that in the arsenal. But something he's become really good at in recent years, and it actually, to me, it started in the Damian Maia fight, which was the fight that made him famous, because he had that infamous post-fight filthy animals rant down there in Brazil, which is really what put him on the map. But I think starting from that fight, his pressure and his boxing was so methodical. There's a quote that Michael Bisping throws out there when he's talking about Colby Covington. He says about Colby, this guy weaponizes his cardio. Like he's got an incredible gas tank. I like to say he has 3 lungs. Colby Covington referred to himself as having 2 lungs. I don't think he really understood how that cliche works because everybody has 2 lungs. Everybody has 2 lungs. But yeah, the pace that he's able to sustain coming forward, accurate volume striking, and he's able to put that pressure on for 25 minutes. And I know that he's not known as a knockout artist, which is true. Joe Rogan had an interesting quote about it in saying that, like, Colby, he may be capable of knocking people out, but it's just not really the way that he uses his hands. Like, you could say the same thing about a guy like Nick Diaz, where, he prioritizes more the volume, the pace, and the accuracy over really winding up for power shots. And that's what makes Colby so dangerous. Like at some point in 25 minutes, could he use his wrestling? Absolutely. You could probably have some success with that. But I think the real weapon that Colby has is his volume striking and his pressure. And so, Masvidal may be able to go toe-to-toe with him for about 10 minutes and even potentially knock him out in the first 10 minutes. But I think once you get to the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th round, you're just going to see that gas tank make all the difference, James, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that gas tank is plays a mental game with you too, and not just for Colby and gives him confidence, but I think it plays a mental game with your opponents. When you talk as much trash as you do going into the fight, and you're crossing the line and getting the guy all riled up, and you're just still coming at that same guy in the 4th round, in the 5th round with just so much fear, and now the opponent is backing up. It just plays a mental game. I think you saw that in the Tyron Woodley fight where, he kind of just checked out after he just realized that, look, I'm not gonna beat this guy. I'm not gonna knock him out no matter how much trash he talks and everything. He keeps coming forward. He has a better gas tank than his opponent. So that gas tank is, really only him and the Diaz brothers, I would say, are right up there in that elite class. And if you can use that the right way, which Colby has figured out, not only by doing it with wrestling, but now, as you mentioned, with striking, I think that really separates him. And people don't realize Colby's tough, man. Like he takes shots. He takes some shots. He keeps going. A lot of people don't give him credit for his toughness. And I think every opponent, you've heard Kamaru Usman say it afterwards. You hear some opponents say it afterwards that, man, Colby's tough. He took more shots than I expected him to take. A lot of people kind of underestimate that part of his game. So it's the cardio, it's the volume, it's the toughness as well, the ability to take shots. That's why I think he's one of the top 10 fighters in the UFC. He doesn't have a belt, but I'd put him in my top 10 overall, regardless of weight class.
I love that statement. But yeah, you just hit it, James. That there's 2 X factors in this fight that make it kind of hard to decide how you think it's going to go. The X factor on Masvidal's side is he's shockingly good at defending takedowns and keeping the fight standing. The X factor on Colby is he can take a punch. Mm-hmm. So if he can eat all those shots from Kamaru Usman in their last tilt, Masvidal's a blown up lightweight. So I think, as good a striker as he is, I think Colby could take a few shots from him as well.
Now, I want to remind everybody, whether you're watching us live right now at 6:13 p.m. here on Thursday, or you're watching us later via replay, do us a solid. Smash the like button. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and subscribe to 5 Reasons Sports YouTube. A lot of great content on this channel, and it's a lot of variety. Combat sports talk, yes. A lot of Miami Heat talk, Dolphins, Miami Hurricanes, some soccer talk, hockey talk even. So we have you covered here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. And by the way, in about 17 minutes, the great Kevin Iole, Hall of Fame boxing and MMA writer, Kevin Iole is going to join us at around 6:30 p.m. And we're catching him at a good time because around 7 p.m., he's going to be on his way to the press conference, which is going to be, he's out in Las Vegas, so it's going to be 3 hours earlier where he is. But fellas, let's talk a little bit about what Masvidal can do to win this fight, because I don't want to make it sound like, this is all Colby, because Jorge Masvidal is a dangerous motherfucker, okay? He has an incredible jab, and he's got great reach. And, yeah, he is the more unpredictable power striker. And I mention it if you get to, and my official pick, I think, is going to be Colby by decision. So I think once you get into the deeper waters, I think Colby's cardio is going to make a difference. But I think anybody watching this fight, like if for whatever reason, if you're rooting for Colby or if you put money on Colby, you're going to have some moments in those first 10 minutes where Jorge is going to come close to catching him, might catch him with something because he's incredibly dangerous. And then I also have to wonder, and James, I'll start with you on this one. If Masvidal can maybe get any sort of mental edge from the times that they used to spar with one another, it's hard to really get a straight answer because again there are codes with this stuff, right? I know certain people like Cyril Gahn's coach will try and violate the codes of what happens in sparring, but you hear different stories depending on the person, right? That initially Colby was brought in to just work on George's wrestling, right? That they used to wrestle. Then they started sparring, with striking, and that, Colby wouldn't do too well. And obviously, Masvidal's been striking a lot longer than Colby, so that's not too surprising that Masvidal used to get the better of him in the striking. And, Masvidal seems to be brimming with confidence about that because he's going to bring up time and time again how, in his words, I used to make Colby quit with body shots, that this guy would fold. He's a front runner. If things weren't going his way, he would fold. I would make him quit with body shots. So I wonder, depending on how much of that is true, if that can give Masvidal even an extra mental edge going into this fight.
Yeah, and I think if Colby decides to try to be macho and like he did with Usman, just had a stand-up fight, Usman in part 1, and just have a stand-up fight, for 5 rounds, I think that's the most likely way Masvidal is going to win. But I think Colby kind of dictates that in a little bit. If Colby wants to wrestle, he can try to take it to the ground. But I think if he tries to prove a point and say, okay, so you think you won more sparring rounds than me, standing up, I'm going to stand up with you for 5 rounds and I'm going to stand in your face and things like that. I think that will play right into Masvidal's game, especially in the first 3 rounds where he can get caught and he can get dropped. But I judging by the second Kamaru Usman fight where Colby made some adjustments and tried to wrestle more, it didn't necessarily work, but at least, he kind of swallowed his ego a little bit and tried to resort to his wrestling. I think if he does that in this matchup, against Masvidal, I think it's going to work a lot more than, another elite level wrestler in Usman.
What do you think, Frank, about Masvidal's chances? What does he have to do to get it done?
Well, he has to take advantage of moments when Colby's in the pocket. There will be moments when that happens, despite what Colby's game plan is going to be. I mean, Colby's going to come out. He's going to be on the outside. He's going to be working that southpaw jab, that odd kind of setup that he has, where he kind of fights wrestling lead. And, he's going to be drumming that. But when he decides to grind, when he decides to come in and grind or make Masvidal tire, which I think is going to be an integral part of his plan. I don't think he necessarily has to take him down, but he has to grind. Then those will be the moments that he steps into the pocket. So George has to be ready to capitalize on those moments because he has incredibly fast hand speed and an oddly strong power for his size, So, that's it. I mean, he has to choose those moments. And Alex, to your point earlier, he's got to get those moments early because I think by the 3rd round, trending into the 4th round, fighting those takedowns, fighting off the cage, I think he'll start to gas. Masvidal's got a great gas tank too. I'm not suggesting he doesn't have good cardio. I'm just saying that fighting off an elite wrestler by the 3rd round, your arms will be tired. There will be less power in those punches, and Colby will get braver with coming in and working the jab. And then I really think it becomes Robbie Lawler. But, look, you guys are all absolutely right. If he capitalizes on those pocket moments, there's absolutely the chance that he hits him on the chin and it's good night, Colby Covington.
So we'll circle back to UFC 272 when Kevin Iole gets in about 12 minutes. I want to talk about this Cain Velasquez saga. First of all, it's amazing how the perception of this changed when more details came out, right? So we found out late Monday, Cain Velasquez shot at and tried to kill somebody, like former UFC heavyweight champion. He had more recently dabbled in pro wrestling. I don't really watch pro wrestling, but I know he was involved with the WWE for a while. But, I was a huge fan of Cain Velasquez during his UFC heavyweight run. Frank, you and I had a chance to meet him years ago. He came into the WQAM studios and was a really nice guy. I mean, he was there with his lovely wife. And so we find out on Monday that he was arrested and had been charged with attempted murder, tried to shoot and kill somebody. It was shocking. why did he do this? Is there more to this guy than meets the eye? Is there CTE? Is there like something wrong with his brain?
Is he Aaron Hernandez? We just didn't know.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Right.
But then, okay, a couple of days later, details start to trickle out that the person he attempted to shoot and kill, allegedly, and he's actually been charged with this, was molesting a 4-year-old relative of Cain Velasquez, and my understanding is it's Cain's child. So Velasquez had his child for the past 2 years at a daycare center, a home daycare center run by the mother of this molester. And according to reports, this person allegedly, molested this 4-year-old relative of Cain Velasquez upwards of 100 times. And so, okay, what ended up happening is Cain had followed this group of people in their car. This alleged molester, his mother and his stepfather, were driving him to go get his ankle bracelet because this person had been fucking released from custody. That's a disgusting thing about this. Let me point out a hypocrisy right now. Cain Velasquez is currently being held without bail because they consider him too dangerous to be back out on the streets. Yet this child molester had been actually sent home and just told to get an ankle bracelet. So right there, that just bothers me, the hypocrisy of the justice system out there. So Cain Velasquez had been following these people in his truck, chased them on the roads for 11 miles, and then eventually shot into the car trying to kill this person. And again, I completely understand why he was trying to do that. He was not successful in that, and actually a bullet did not hit the intended target. It went into the arm of this alleged molester stepfather, and that non-lethal. He's going to be okay, but he was hospitalized for that. And so, like, listen, I understand that, you can't in a society just have people going vigilante and car chases and shooting at cars. Like, I get it that, like, we can't, you can't live in a society where you expect that to happen. But at the same time, we're all parents here. All three of us are parents. I imagine a lot of the people in the chat and watching this are parents. I certainly look at this differently, finding out I'm finding out why he tried to kill this person. I look at the story completely differently. I do not blame him whatsoever. I think a lot of people in his shoes would have tried to do the exact same freaking thing. And so something I'm going to say here, guys, and this is all speculation on my part because Velasquez has not been sentenced yet. There's a big free Cain movement, #free Cain, because a lot of people do not want, to see him in a prison cell, given why he tried to kill this person, and which I totally get. He has not been sentenced yet. The alleged child molester has not been sentenced yet. I'm going to tell you what would really bother me, because Velasquez, let me read the number of charges here, including attempted murder. He faces 10 charges in total. They include shooting at an occupied motor vehicle, 3 counts of assault with a firearm, 3 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, willfully discharging a firearm from a vehicle, and carrying a loaded firearm with intent to commit a felony. So I'll tell you what's really going to piss me off is once Cain gets sentenced and once the child molester gets sentenced, because Cain could face, based on these charges, 20 years to life. If he ends up sentenced for like 30, 40 years and the child molester is sentenced to like 5 years, I don't want to live in an America that would dole out punishments that way, Frank. So I don't know where this is all going, but I got to tell you, and again, I'm not saying we should all be chasing down people and shooting at people from cars. That was incredibly reckless and irresponsible. But what I am telling you is I understand why he was trying to do that, Frank.
Yeah, it's a really tough thing for me to talk about. I won't get into any detail, but my family was affected by exactly the same thing. And the only difference between me and Cain is that person was held in jail. So it's just unimaginable, and the rage. And then, like the people in the car, people are saying like innocent, victim. There's no one innocent. When you're that upset, anyone associated with that person, honestly, anyone connected to them in any way, you want to harm. So it's just, but you can't be a vigilante, and it's incredibly hard for me to talk about. But like, You just, I get why he has to be held. And quite honestly, if it was me being held, I would understand the difference because he is dangerous. Because if he gets out, he's going to go do it again. This isn't the end of it. He's not going to stop until he finishes the job because the judicial system is so fucked up there that they would let a person like that out. So, pardon my language, but I mean, it's just, like he should be held. Cain should be held because he's going to go commit that felony again. They're right in that assumption. But this degenerate low-life scumbag, he should be held as well. And if they had held him appropriately, they would have saved a human being from potentially going to jail for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and apparently it was a judge who decided to let this person leave, and the DA was against it. The DA said no, you have to hold him, and a judge let this person go, which was
these are
unfathomable.
These are look, I won't get into activist judges and the rest of it, but that's the reason some of these things are supposed to happen the way they are, to prevent people like us from taking the law into our own hands. These kinds of cases, it will shock you, but these kinds of cases, they are not surefire things. It happened, but you have the testimony of a very, very young child, so it's it is not a foregone conclusion that they will get this motherfucker. So, I can understand Cain wanting to take care of it the way he did. And, it breaks my heart that they didn't do their job judiciously, illegally holding him. And now Cain is going to go to jail for a long time. Especially in the state he's in. He's going to go to jail for a long time.
Yeah, and just to further Frank's point a little bit, I think it shows that there's holes in our judicial system when it comes to certain topics, child molestation, stalking. I've heard issues of people reporting stalking incidents and police not really reacting, and then something could happen, or something did happen, and then they want to react after the fact. There's certain things that, you're like, man, even in 2022 that should be fixed, in our society to prevent, situations like this. And it's just really tough. And with Cain, just thinking if he does get jail time, which I think it looks like it's going in that direction, in the jail code, I think he will be safe, in terms of they protect. And I don't know that much about jail, but I know a little bit about jail in terms of the jail code, and they hate things like child molesters in jail. Cain was actually protecting, a situation where there was child molestation. So he would go in kind of as a hero, so to speak, in a weird way to where, and he's Cain Velasquez. He's a former UFC heavyweight champion, so he won't have any issues in jail. But yeah, I mean, that really doesn't have anything to do with what the judge is going to hand down. If the judge hands down 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, that's going to be really tough on him considering the situation. But yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to this topic that, I don't even know where to really start, really begin to kind of delve in.
Yeah, and this is not exactly the note that I wanted to start out here with our awesome guest, Kevin Aioli from yahoosports.com. But, Kevin, obviously you've been following this Cain Velasquez saga for the last few days, and it's amazing how perception can change as the information comes out, right? Because, my initial reaction when I heard early in the week that he attempted murder, I'm like, does he have just this dark side we didn't know about? Does he have CTE? What's going on? And now we find out what the motive is. And like we were saying, Kevin, before you hopped in, obviously, we can't just have vigilantes out there. But at the same time, I completely understand why he tried to do what he tried to do.
I think most people that, especially people that have kids, but I think most people would agree with you guys. If your kid was molested like that, you would want to do the same thing. But of course, the same is also true. We would have no society if we had vigilante justice. And, it's really, I mean, it's like, I don't even know what to say. You were talking about, as you learned as the story went on. When I first heard it, no way in my wildest dreams did I ever think Cain Velasquez would shoot somebody. So I thought he was the victim. And I was praying that he was okay. And I'm still praying that he's okay because he's in a really bad situation right now. But it's just terrible. Child molestation is as bad a thing as anybody can do. And I understand the immense anger that anybody would have if it happened to one of their children or one of their loved ones.
We are joined here by incredible boxing and MMA journalist Kevin Iole from Yahoo Sports. Kevin, I like the backdrop today. By the way, I figure you're probably
I'm in the backyard here. Yeah,
you are. Like I figure you're probably in Nevada, but it looks like with the trees back there, it's like you're in Tuscany. Like it looks like you're out there
I got the Italian cypress back there. Yes, I do.
That's why it looks like he's in Tuscany. Oh man, and we have so much to dive into, Kevin. I mean, UFC 272 this weekend. You're going to be on your way out there soon for a press conference for that. Has the trash talk and just the dialogue between Colby and Jorge, has it met your expectations so far? Because they even did that. They did the joint thing on Stephen A. Smith, which I don't think let anybody down. It's been pretty remarkable watching it this week.
It is, it has been. I will say this. I interviewed Covington on Zoom a couple of days ago. So I was at the press conference when he spoke, but I didn't ask him any questions. But Masvidal, we missed on Zoom, so I did him in person yesterday. And I have to say, I find him a lot different yesterday than I expected he would be. I thought he was going to be foaming at the mouth and kind of, just jumping through the table. But he was very calm and measured, and I like, a lot of the things that he said. Now I don't know that I agree with him on who is going to win the fight, but I felt like, a lot of the points he made, like, Colby's picking on his 13-year-old kid. I love guys that promote fights, but their family is absolutely 100% off limits, especially children. And what did we learn from the Cain Velasquez situation, right? And now here we are, and the fact that Colby brought Jorge's children into it, it's just beyond the pale to me.
Kevin, I'm curious what the result would be for the winner of this fight. Both have fought and lost against the champion twice, I believe, right? Both guys lost twice.
Yeah.
What happens to the winner of this fight? What's in it in their future, whether it's Masvidal or Colby?
Both of them want to get back to a title shot. I think as Colby said to me, he would be more willing to go to 185, maybe fight somebody like Whitaker, and then try to get a title shot against Adesanya. And I think that would be an interesting, move. I mean, obviously Adesanya is going to have reach and, length on him. But Colby's wrestling and that, the threat of his wrestling make his hands better, right? So I think that would be – so for him, I think that might be the move because, how soon do you put him back in there with Usman? Because, it's really – now this all changes, of course, if Leon Edwards were to beat Kamaru, then I think that, everything changes. But with Kamaru Usman as a champion, I think both guys – are in bad spots. I don't know that you're going to see either one of them get the next, fight or get the next two against Usman.
Kevin, though, you've met Colby also, I'm sure, many times in person. As have we. I don't know how he goes up to 185. I mean, I think he walks around at about 178. He's like one of those guys who uniquely fights very close or walks around very close to the weight he fights at. So it seems to me like he'd be better off going down than up, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is if he goes down, which obviously you're cutting a lot of muscle because Colby's not this big cut guy or anything, but I mean that's a big jump. That's almost 10% of his body weight, right? Going from 70 to 55, and when you do that, you're going into a division where there are a lot of guys in line for title shots, right? I mean, so it's not easier there. I mean, so going up. It's like Adesanya's cleaned out the division. I think Colby can bulk up a little bit, and go in there and be okay. Whereas if you go to 55, the reason you're going to do that is one, to fight for the title, not to be a guy in the division fighting fights against other contenders. And I think he'd have to do that because look how stacked that division is. And how do we squeeze him in there? We're talking about, this ridiculous notion of Conor McGregor getting a title fight and somebody like Islam Makhachev not getting I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's just – so I think from Colby's standpoint, there'd be more opportunity up than down.
We're joined here by Kevin Iole, boxing and MMA journalist from yahoosports.com. So let's get into how you think the fight's going to play out, Kevin. Covington has been a sizable favorite all along. I think we all understand why he's favored here. I'm looking at minus 350 So I'm not. Yeah, I'd probably have to find a prop because I don't know if I'm going to put that much down in a grudge match. Masvidal, the plus 250 underdog. How do you think the fight plays out?
I think probably like you alluded to, I think Colby's wrestling is going to be a big factor in this fight. I mean, I can make a case for both guys, right? I think, Colby's striking is good and effective because he has that threat of wrestling. But Masvidal has been with him and knows the keys and knows when he's going to actually shoot and knows when he's going to throw punches, or he should know because they sparred so many rounds together. And so, you can say, okay, if Masvidal knows that and he can neutralize the wrestling, then, he's clearly the better striker and he should be able to, handle him there. But, you just think when everything else is even, Colby has two things that, really favor him, I think. His unbelievable cardio. He may have the best cardio of anybody in the UFC. He's going hard the entire time. And that wears on guys and that wrestling ability that he has. Masvidal admits, hey, in straight wrestling, I can't compete with him. In MMA wrestling, it's different. But I think, if Colby, fights a wrestle-heavy fight, which I think he probably will, I just find it hard to believe Jorge is going to be able to do much against them.
Kevin, this question is a little bit left field, but we've seen grudge matches where guys have shake hands, hug it out, whatever after the fight. Is there any chance these two have at least a respectful reconciliation after this fight?
So
even if it's just respectful.
Masvidal said to me yesterday, if we were in a situation where our lives are on the line and I needed Colby and Colby needed me to save each other, I would punch him in the face and die because I would never shake his hand, and I'm not going to have it. So he is in no mood, and I don't see Colby changing off. I mean, I think Colby would be the one, to offer a hand because, he's been the guy talking shit, right? And he's been the guy, kind of instigating everything. So I think, he would be the one to offer. But he's going to keep an eye on how Masvidal is acting because, if he doesn't know how Masvidal is after the fight, I don't think he wants to offer his hand and get hit with a left hook, So I think I just don't. I think the UFC is going to keep them apart even when the fight's over. I think you'll see. Do you guys remember when Tyson fought Lennox Lewis and they put the security guards, diagonally across the ring? I think that's kind of, some UFC version of that we may see.
You guys know the story that Kamaru Usman tells. I like Kamaru Usman a lot because he's self-deprecating. Yeah. And he tells a story about, Colby's always saying just horrendous things about him. And he catches Colby in an airport. And he walks up to him, and he's got the meanest face on that he could put. And he walks up to him, and Colby looks up, and he smiles and goes, "Hey, man, what's up?" And shakes his hand. And he said, "I immediately just felt like an asshole." Because right. Clearly this guy's selling a fight, But to your point, Kevin, like for George, it's all real. Like it's none of this for him is not real. We know that from the backstage brawl that happened. Like he cannot separate selling a fight from an insult on the street, and it's a code he lives by, and he wears his emotion on his sleeve. So I am going to be super. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think he can, Frank. I think he can, except for this guy. And I think the reason why, you said something that was interesting. You said, Colby's just selling a fight. But, as I said in the beginning, in answer to Alex's question, when you have somebody talking about your parents, about your religion, about your children, then that, there's a line that's crossed. Like you can say anything about the fighter you want, right? I mean, pretty much anything about the fighter, and that's, fair game because you're going to fight each other and you're going to have to answer for those words. But, Masvidal said yesterday, he goes, my 13-year-old daughter, he goes, I try to control what she does. She's coming up to me and saying, Dad, why is this guy talking about me and why is he bringing me in? And that's a hard question to answer to a 13-year-old and explain to them, what's going on. And I just think so. Colby has put himself in a position, Frank, that I think, even if he is intentionally trying to sell the fight, there's a line you can't cross. And in all my years of covering combat sports and hearing a lot of bad things said back and forth at press conferences, I can't ever remember anybody bringing another fighter's children into it. And I don't blame Masvidal for being irate.
I hear you, and I don't disagree that a line should be there, but who put the line there? Like, look, Colby is like following a line of boring wrestlers. I'm going to go to Chael Sonnen, right? Where they have to start stepping on the line to monetize what is otherwise not a very fan-friendly style of fighting. And so we say he shouldn't cross the line. We say he shouldn't step all over the line. We say he shouldn't do these things. But he's making a ton of money as a result of it. So it's kind of hard. And, the really weird thing, Kevin, is that for a while we had become friends. He was a show friend. We saw him a lot outside of the show. Could not be a sweeter, more deferential and considerate human being. So I know it's bullshit. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I mean, I know it is, but I'm not saying that in a bad way. George says it like this guy's fake. No, this guy's selling a fight. I get it. Chael Sonnen's a really nice guy too. But, he sold fights. He didn't go quite as far as Colby has been going and selling a fight. But, everyone everyone didn't give Conor McGregor a lot of crap when I thought he was getting into racial overtones in that build-up to Floyd Mayweather's fight. I mean, go back and watch some of those press conferences. Yeah. Yeah, okay, you did. All right.
Twice.
No,
I did it both before he fought Habib and before he fought Floyd. I thought he was acting racist, and I wrote columns ripping him for that. It's why, I did a Twitter Spaces chat today, and I was really kind of slamming Conor because, it's like the Conor that came into the UFC in 2013 was a fun guy. And he was a great talker. He was a great showman, and he was a great fighter. And his talk was fun. And, he was quick-witted and everything. And now he's turned everything personal and negative. And, and it's just like he's hitting people in bars. The other day he was standing up at the Bellator fights, and he's literally standing, smack in front of the people behind him. And it's like he has no consideration for anybody else in the world but himself, and I think the money has done that to him. And I think, Colby, like I was going to say, and, so you brought it up. I don't have to go into it, but UFC employees will tell you what a sweet guy Colby is and how well he treats waiters and waitresses and just people like that, and that says a lot about him. But I think you got to be more aware that you can't bring family into it. There's not much you can't. And if you look at Chael's a great example. Chael was pro wrestling, right? And he had all that, that pro wrestling shtick. And, Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. And okay, that's talking about the fighter.
Well,
and
there was the pat the wife on the butt thing. Remember? There was that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was, Chael did not go to the length that Colby is, and I think that's where. I mean, hey, Colby's done. He's done it. He was on the verge of getting cut. And here he is now in another huge pay-per-view.
Kevin, it's like Donald Trump. You cringe.
His idol.
But you cringe at the Twitter stuff. But then he tells you, "Hey, look what it did. It shocked the world." You know what I mean? So I don't think anyone talks Colby off of this because the money's flowing in.
Well, and speaking of the money, Kevin, I wanted to ask you. So, okay, all this talk about Colby selling fights, this is a rare UFC pay-per-view without a belt on the line, and the rest of the card isn't stacked. Okay, so they're really banking on this non-title grudge match delivering financially. What's your expectation for the pay-per-view sales?
I think they will do at least 800,000. And I think they have a shot to hit 1 million if things go well in the last 48 hours, and also on the day of the fight. And when I say go well, sometimes you see it happen. Everybody's trying to buy the pay-per-view at the same time, and then there gets a jam up, and then you lose a certain percentage of people who give up, right? Who can't get in. Kind of like that Ticketmaster line yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw that. I tweeted it out, and other people tweeted it later. For Tyson Fury, Dillian White tickets in the UK, they put tickets on sale. Somebody sent me there. They got in the Ticketmaster line. There was 140,000 people ahead of them.
Oh my God.
They sold 90,000 tickets in 3 hours, and this person was there, and there was 140,000 people in line ahead. So when you get in a line like that, you're going to lose a certain percentage of people. So on the pay-per-view, I think if everything goes well and they get a lot of early orders and things happen, then I think they can hit 1 million, because I think the interest in this fight, and Masvidal has proven to be a pay-per-view draw. He's averaging 1 million pay-per-view in his 3 fights, right? Now he's had 3 unbelievably big fights, 2 welterweight fights against against Kamaru Usman, and then the BMF fight against Nate Diaz. So he's had the big fights that will sell, but they have sold. He's gone out and done it. But like Masvidal is a guy the public recognizes, that the public likes, and I think he will. His presence on this card and the unbelievable animosity between these two, I think, is going to give it a really big pay-per-view number.
Joined here by Kevin Ioli of Yahoo Sports. Before we let you run, the co-main event had a late shuffle, and so I want to talk through the Islam Makhachev situation. So 5 days ago, he completely dominated Bobby Green. Obviously, didn't have to expend too much energy and didn't really take any damage in doing so. And so then Rafael dos Anjos, his opponent, drops out. He's looking for an opponent. So Makhachev calls out Dos Anjos, and Dana White was saying earlier this week that he thought, the fight was going to happen, that Makhachev would step in on less than a week's notice to fight Rafael dos Anjos. And then, according to Dana, Makhachev decided not to take the fight. So I guess this is a two-parter. A, what happened there? And B, now it looks like Makhachev, who may have been on his way to a lightweight title fight, Dana's now going to make him fight Beneil Dariush, who he was supposed to fight, a week ago. So is Dana punishing Makhachev for not taking a fight on a week's notice?
Well, let's answer that one first. And I don't think he's punishing him, but I think what he's trying to do is, without putting attention on himself, open the door for Conor McGregor. And you've seen Oliveira say he wants to fight Conor McGregor, right? And so now, and if you remember, Dana did an interview and somebody asked him, who Oliveira was going to fight next, if he beat Gaethje, and he said, well, the champion has a say in this too, and it's going to depend on what the champion wants. Okay, and the champion, if Oliveira wins, would be Oliveira, and we know that he wanted to fight Conor. So I think that he's trying to open the door, because Dana knows that guys like the five of us, or four of us. I saw four boxes and I'm sitting here, but I forgot I'm in one of those boxes. The four of us are going to go nuts if they give Conor McGregor a title fight when he hasn't won a 150-pound, 5-pound fight since 2016. I'm going to go ape shit over that. He has not won a lightweight fight since 2016, and you're going to put him in a title fight. So I think, he's kind of greasing the skids, say, oh, this is who Charles wants to fight. And that way they get International Fight Week. They have Conor McGregor in the main, which I have no problem with that, but not against Charles Oliveira for the title. I don't think if Gaethje wins, Gaethje would want to fight him. So, I don't think it would be an issue there. And then that would put Dana in an interesting situation, because if Gaethje won and Dana wants Conor to fight for the title, then he's going to have to be the one to push for it and fight Gaethje. And I think Gaethje comes from that dominance MMA camp that doesn't have a lot of love for Conor, and I don't think I don't think that he would be into that. But I think that's what you saw there.
Guys, if I'm Gaethje's manager or confidant, I'm telling him, take the Conor fight, hold on to the belt a little longer, because when Makhachev gets a hand on anybody who's got the belt, he's taking it.
Yeah, I agree. That's, the thing is, I just think, you've seen some bitterness between Gaethje and Conor online, right, toward each other. And Gaethje's one of those guys, he's a man of conviction. And I think, he doesn't feel Conor deserves it. And so I don't think he would want to give it to him. Although I agree with you. I think Gaethje would destroy him, right? I think any of these top guys at this point, Conor had a run. And I think Conor, if he wasn't a celebrity and doing all this other stuff, would still be capable of fighting at a high level. But I think, just that little bit difference, it's not a huge difference, but that little bit of extra in training and in all the stuff that you do to get ready, the desire, the hunger isn't as there for Conor as it used to be. And when it's not, then look at Loretta. And I think, Conor's not the same fighter as he once was. So, hey, these guys, I think, Makhachev, Gaethje, Oliveira, I think all those guys would handle him.
And one last thing for Kevin, because he's such an amazing boxing writer as well. And I know over the years you've covered the Klitschko brothers, you've covered Vasily Lomachenko, and I'm really not surprised given, the character and the makeup of these men. And Vitaly Klitschko is he's the mayor of Kyiv. He and his brother Vladimir and Vasily Lomachenko, and there are probably others in the Ukrainian boxing community, are literally fighting the Russians. They've taken up arms. I think that this is just an incredible thing. What's it been like, Kevin, to cover this aspect of that story?
Well, and you didn't mention Alexander Usyk, who is the unified heavyweight champion. And then the Bellator champion, Yaroslav Amosov, is also fighting, and he's doing this. And it's remarkable, but, it hits home for me with the Klitschko brothers because I have covered them, for 20 years. And I really had a special relationship with Vitaly, of everybody. And, the fact that there's Vitaly, what immense courage. We talk about fighters having courage, and they do. Every single person that steps between those ropes has huge balls and huge courage, and you can't deny that. But, this is a totally different thing. He is putting his life at risk, and he knows that he's being targeted by Putin, right? You're an outspoken Putin critic. You're a very popular leader of your city and really of that country. And, what do you do, in war? You decapitate the leadership. And certainly Putin is a thug and a murderer. And if he could take out Vitaly Klitschko, that would be good for his side. And Vitaly knows that. And yet he is out there. He's in the foxhole on the front lines. He's he's working, 20 hours a day. Trying to protect this country. And it's just, to me, I get choked up when I think about it. That is what patriotism is all about. And that is what, a hero really is. We call athletes heroes way too often. And these freaking guys are heroes. They are literally standing in front of bullets and tanks and trying to defend their homeland. And it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, unbelievable stuff. Kevin Iole, you want to check out his work at yahoosports.com on the MMA pages and the boxing pages and on Twitter at Kevin I. He does a great job on the Twitter spaces as well. Kevin, thank you so much and enjoy the fights this weekend.
All right, guys, I appreciate it. Good to talk to you as always. We'll see you.
Good to talk to you too. And guys, let's pick up on that point. I thought Kevin, he left it on a great quote there that a lot of times people throw around the term hero for athletes, like very loosely. Oh, this guy hit a game-winning shot. Oh, he's playing a game. He's getting paid millions of dollars to play a game. He hit a game-winning shot. People go crazy. Yeah, it's fine. That's a great moment. But you have Ukrainian boxers literally taking up arms and defending their country, defending their freedom against invading forces. I think it's and like I said to Kevin, it's really not surprising given what I know about these fighters and former fighters. And Vitaly is even the mayor of the biggest city in Ukraine, so it's not surprising to me. But that doesn't make it any less heroic, Frank.
I just really hope that if the United States is ever put in a position like Ukraine is being put in right now, that the inner Cain Velasquez of the American spirit comes out. Because you see how our population gets soft, and then you see what's going on over there, and the reality of it. I think we're so used to just watching Netflix series and experiencing these things in a fictional, tangential way. We don't realize that really life and death is on the line. And when Klitschko goes and takes a weapon and heads out to the front line, he may not come back. I don't think people appreciate the kind of bravery that takes.
Yeah, I've seen some comments online just saying that there's so many guns in our country, just in the common citizens that really couldn't happen in our country because, there's so many citizens that just have weapons. But, I don't know. I also saw Miss Ukraine 2015, I think, is also fighting. Yeah. So it's not just the men in the country. It's the women who are showing tons of bravery as well.
They're going to lose, though, guys. And that's the thing. I don't know. It's a really frustrating thing because we're just watching this happen. And I think this time next week it'll be a Russian province, unfortunately.
Well, and listen, I don't want to, I can only speak for myself. I'm not really equipped to have too deep of a conversation on this conflict. But I do, Frank, you're more economically minded than I am. Something that we're seeing a lot with, being done to Russia, a lot of these sanctions, economic sanctions, the SWIFT banking, the pipeline, trying to cripple their economy. Is that going to work? And what happens if they do take over Ukraine? Does that kind of make a lot of that stuff null and void?
Yeah, it will. But unfortunately, what we've done to date is not effective for the simple reason that we don't want to cut off their energy. We can't, everyone's decided, well, no. We're going to sanction you, but we'll still buy your natural gas and oil. So that's the bulk of his revenue. So get ready for this. We're still paying Putin. Money's still coming from all of these countries to that man in exchange for oil and natural gas.
All right. Well, again, like I said, I'm not really equipped to have this conversation. So before we close out this episode, fellas, we got UFC 272 this Saturday night. And yeah, like Tony two-time says, they will fight to the death. And my admiration for them has grown beyond comprehension. And yeah, Frank, preach. Our guy Chris, Vince Tailgate. And let me also remind you guys, I reminded you earlier, please smash the like button. Hit the like button for this episode. Subscribe to 5 Reasons Sports on YouTube if you haven't already. The more likes we get, the more people's timelines we're going to show up in. We want to invade YouTube. Like if there's any invasion offer, forget about Putin. We want to invade YouTube. We want to show up in everybody's timeline, man. This is the most peaceful invasion we could possibly do. So make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to our channel. And yeah, for anybody, I know we have people who partake in the live chat. I've heard from people who watch us and don't necessarily use the live chat. Why not, man? We have fun in there. We turn it into a chat room. Tony two-times is in there. Oh, man, I'm going to try to Aloev. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Chris, the Finn's Tailgate, is in there. Got a couple Russian spammers in there. Alex M is in there. Trevor Gaffney has been in here. Like, we love you guys. We love having the conversations. But, yeah, so I want to ask this question to you guys that we always ask before every pay-per-view. And, James, I'll start with you. Mm-hmm. Is this one worth the $75 home price tag?
You know, we had this conversation about a month ago of whether I was a pay-per-view buyer of the entire card or just the main event. And so I surprised myself that I'm just a buyer of the main event. Maybe that'll change, but this one is going to get my money. So, yeah, I think it is just for the main event, but I think I'm in the minority with that. I think most people look for the entire card when they're thinking about whether or not to invest their money. But I just look at the main fight. If it's worth it, everything else is gravy.
What about you, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a little Bellator-esque, right, to have a non-title main event, both fighters coming off a loss,
Oh, yeah, I even thought about that because that doesn't really matter here.
No one mentioned that. Yeah,
it's true.
But guys, it's not Rampage fighting King Mo. Okay, it's two great fighters. James said it great. It said it really well. I mean, Colby's probably top 10, even though he doesn't have a belt. So, unlike Bellator, we're seeing really, really high-level mixed martial arts, and these guys can sell a fight, man. So, yeah, I'm buying it, and I'm buying it for the main event. And I think, as I always am, when I think the undercard isn't going to be much of anything, it'll really deliver. There'll be a lot of exciting moments in that as well.
Yeah, and like there's some good fighters and some recognizable names on this undercard. I don't feel like the undercard is like, this is more like if this was on like an ESPN
Fight
Plus
night
event, right? I'd say, oh, this is a good undercard. It just doesn't feel like pay-per-view quality, but there's some good fighters on here. Now, obviously, Rafael Dos Anjos, late replacement opponent, he's going to fight Renato Moicano, which is very interesting because he's had like 4 days to prepare for a really dangerous submission artist. So I think this fight's going to be really interesting. Edson Barbosa is on the card against Bryce Mitchell, Kevin Holland against Alex Oliveira, the Cowboy, and the curtain jerker, guys, of the pay-per-view portion, the $75 portion, is going to be Greg Hardy as a 2-1 underdog against Sergey Spivak. Now, Hardy coming off 2 consecutive losses. So, I mean, I'm not a huge Greg Hardy fan.
Hey, it's the heavyweight we all love to hate. And, you know, we can't wait to watch him lose again. So
right, and Spivak is a 2-1 favorite in this fight, minus 200. So, do you think if Greg Hardy loses his 3rd straight, does he get his walking papers?
Yeah, I'll jump in with that one. I actually covered Greg Hardy's first amateur fight.
Right.
Up in Fort Pierce. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really shown the ability to develop. I think when we had Dean Thomas on the show a few months ago, I asked because he took part in some early training, and a point that I made was that, we just still don't know what he is as a fighter. Is he a striker? Is he a grappler? Is he, what is he necessarily? So by now I thought, he would have sort of an identity. I think he's still looking, and it's hard to look for an identity as a fighter in the UFC at that level. So it may take him going down a step to kind of figure out what he is as a fighter and then come back up. But yeah, if he loses 3 in a row, I think that's probably it for him.
Guys, I love the Greg Hardy downward spiral for this reason. And it's not because of his past transgression. It's because he's an elite professional athlete who is demonstrating that this requires elite professionalism too. You don't
Good
just
call.
walk in here and pick it up in 6 months working at ATT. So I love the way that kind of endorses this as a professional sport as well.
I like that. We'll close up on that note. So if you guys missed any part of the show, as soon as we're done, the replay is going to be, I think, instantly available on YouTube. And within the next 12 hours, we're going to get the audio posted on our podcast channel, which reminds me of a couple things, man. Not only you see there on Frank's header, that's the show Twitter account. Make sure you're following that. If you're on Twitter and you're watching this, no reason why not to follow our show Twitter account. And we don't spam you or anything. Like, man, every now and then I'll follow back an account on Twitter because, like, I try to be nice. If somebody follows me and it looks like, hey, they're into stuff that I'm into, I'll follow them back, right? Because maybe it will enrich both of our Twitter experiences. And then sometimes I'll follow back, and then within 3 minutes they're in my DMs trying to sell me something, and I feel so burned by that. Like, I'm into crypto. I followed somebody back today because I saw that they were into crypto, and within 30 seconds they're trying to sell me their NFTs in my DMs. And I'm like, oh, why did I follow this person? So we're not going to do that to you. We're not going to spam you if you follow us. We'll follow you back, and we're not going to go crazy in the spamming. So at 5_MMA is where you get us on Twitter. And make sure you subscribe to our podcast. We're available on all the big platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Those are the big two. So find us there. 5 Rounds MMA. You're going to see the orange and black fist logo in there, and you're going to know you came to the right place. So make sure you follow us on Twitter. Make sure you download the podcast, and make sure you enjoy UFC 272. And by the way, if you don't think it's worth that $75 price tag, because I know people value the dollar differently these days, and inflation is real, man. You paid like $75 at the gas pump this week. Maybe you don't want to pay $75 for a pay-per-view. Go out to the quarter deck. Do it on Saturday. Do it tonight, hell, but do it again on Saturday, because you will pay nothing at the door. No cover charge. They're not going to try and make you make up for the $75 price tag. No cover charge to watch UFC 272. Enjoy the 2-for-1 drink specials, the 2-for-1 happy hour. It's constant. It's all day, every day. Enjoy the delicious seafood, the awesome appetizers, the great burgers and sandwiches. So if you want to find the location nearest to you, check out their website, quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarter Deck, come for the food, stay for the fun. James, any parting comments before we wrap it up?
No, I'll be excited to talk about the result for next week and see how this happens. As Kevin mentioned, I agree that they're not going to hug it out. So I don't even know if this is going to be resolved at the end, at least on a personal level, but at least they'll get to fight it out and, put their differences aside here afterwards.
What about you, Frank? Any parting shots?
Yeah, man, I'm hoping Dana White has a tribute to Ukraine to either lead off the pay-per-view or there's some special thing that they do. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know how involved in geopolitical issues he would want to get, but it's an international sport. Yeah. So if there's a sport that should make a statement, it's the UFC.
Amen to that. And God bless anyone, everyone in Ukraine right now, and those who have family and friends who are literally fighting for their lives and fighting for their freedom. So huge shout out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will talk to you guys again next week on another episode of 5 Rounds on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.